Okay, good evening everyone, and welcome back to the PARSHAS shir. We're holding over here by PARSHAS BECHUKOSAI. This is the famous parsha that has encased inside of the words the Teichacha, which is the rebuke that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives to Klal Yisrael for all of their sinful ways that they don't follow in the ways of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's a grim and a dark and a very menacing part of the parsha. I'm not going to deal with that tonight. We'll save that for the drush on Shabbos. Thanks for the laugh. Okay. But I would like to speak about what happens right after. The Teichacha, what happens right after the admonition that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives to Klal Yisrael. 26 years ago was the passing of Rabbi Moshe Sher Zatzal. Rabbi Moshe Sher was the prime emissary and the defender of Klal Yisrael in America. He was the head of what we call Agudas Yisrael. He ran it for decades. And he passed away 26 years ago. He was a man of tremendous strength, tremendous tenacity, tremendous vision and determination and commitment. And he got quite sick and ill towards the end of his life. And in a relatively short amount of time, he passed away. And by the Levaya and by the Hesped and by the eulogies that came afterwards, his son Reb Shimshi came to Baltimore. I was learning at the time, and he delivered a most eloquent and inspiring and elevating eulogy about his father. And it was this parsha, it was PARSHAS BECHUKOSAI, and he said his father asked a very poignant question on the parsha, which ended up being something that has stuck in my mind for 26 years already. The parsha goes through the Teicha, which is the admonition. HaKadosh Baruch Hu explains to Klal Yisrael that if you follow in my ways, you're going to be gebenched, you'll be blessed, you'll have all the good things will come down min hashamayim. You'll have wealth and you'll have prosperity, you'll have blessings, you'll have goodness, you'll have health, you'll have everything that you need. Klal Yisrael will be secure in their land, they'll be in a place in Eretz Yisrael, everything is going to be good. But in Bechukosai loisei lechu, but if you don't go in the ways of my mitzvahs, things are going to go awry for the Jewish people. It'll be destruction. It'll be chorban. It will be the end of the Beis Hamikdash. We'll go into Golus and the exile. It's not going to be a pretty time for the Jewish people. And at the very end of the Teicha, the very end of the admonition of this rebuke that Hashem gives, we end off on a high note where we begin speaking once again. Hashem remembers the bris, the covenant with Yaakov and Yitzchak and Avram. He remembers who Klal Yisrael when we remember who we are. And in the end, things will end up working itself out. We will get the message. Right after that, seemingly very much out of place, the Torah goes into something called Erechim, which are the voluntary vows of monetary vows that a person makes to the Beis Hamikdash, to Hashem, where they are ma'arich, where they give an evaluation or a valuation of their worth, so to speak, and they dedicate that money as a gift to the Ribbono Shel Olam. And Rabbi Moshe Sher Zatzal asked the following question: what is the connection between HaKadosh Baruch Hu talking about all of the terrible things that are going to befall the Jewish people, all the destruction, all the pain that we're going to experience, and suddenly right after that is, by the way, if you'd like to give a gift to Hashem, if you'd like to make a valuation of yourself, so if you're this age, you'll give 5 shkalim, if you're this age, you'll give 10 shkalim, if you're this age, you're going to give 20 shkalim, you'll donate this money as a gift, as a showing of the valuation of yourself to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What is the connection between the mass destruction that HaKadosh Baruch Hu talks about, and suddenly a person offering this monetary gift, which is supposed to be the value of the person themselves, to Hashem? What's the connection? And he said to his son Shimshi, the meaning of this is the following. He says, how does a person know what their true value is? A person goes along every single day of their life. We wake up in the morning, we look in the mirror. Our hair is either a little bit too bushy on one side, a little too gray, a little too this, a little too thin. How does a person give the value of who they are? They go to work, they make a bit of money. So is that the value of the person? A person overcomes some great nisayon, some great challenge that they have. They have a really bad midah of kas, of anger, and they're working on that midah of kas. They're not going to get angry. They get themselves into a situation, and they control themselves from the anger. Person buys a new house. They drive a fancy car. They have nice clothes. They're sharp. They're good looking. They're this. They're pretty. All the different things. How does a person know what the value of themselves is? Says Rav Sher, it's after the teichacha, after a person goes through the challenges that HaKadosh Baruch Hu puts them through in life, after a person will go through the difficulties, after the floor can be wiped clean with them, and they bounce back, and they show their inner strength, and they show who they really are, that is then how you know the true value of who a person is. How we handle the nisyonos, the challenges that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us in life. How we will rise to the challenge. How we will dig into ourselves and find strength that we never knew that we had. How our emunah is going to become stronger and better as a result of the things that Hashem puts us through. That person that emerges from the challenge in his life, that is how you know the value of who that person is. Rabbi Moshe Sher himself, 2 weeks before he was nifter, before he passed away, he was lying in his hospital bed and he was in tremendous pain. I believe he had machla, some kind of a cancer, lymphoma, I believe. He was in tremendous, tremendous pain. It was racking his body. And his son Shimshi was visiting him. And he was bemoaning his plight to his son. And he said, Shimshi, because of all the treatments, everything I'm going through, I'm in so much pain. I'm in so much suffering. My mind is so cloudy with all the medications. I can't do anything. I can't daven. I can't learn. I stopped thinking. His whole life he thought only about Klal Yisrael, only about every other Jew. What could he do to make the life of the Jewish people better and more fulfilling in this world? I can't even think about what to do for a fellow Jew that is in need. I can't think. I pick up my Gemara every day to learn Daf Yomi. I just stare at the page. I have no idea what it's even saying. Sounds like us. But I said, I have no idea what it's even saying. And it's very painful for me. To feel that I can't do anything is very painful for me. I think about a day or two later, Shimshi came to the hospital and he had to take his father to one of the treatments. And they're walking down the hallway of the hospital corridor, and Rav Sher is so weak, he's holding on to the railing, schlepping along, one step at a time. And he hears, and Rav Shimshi, the son, hears his father singing a niggin, a song. And he's singing, Ein Oid Milvadoi, Ein Oid Milvadoi. There's nothing else besides Hashem. Ein Oid Milvadoi. There's nothing else besides Hashem. And he turns to his father and says, is that like some new niggin, some new song that you just came up with? What are you singing? So he said, yesterday, he said, a Rosh Hashiva called me to see how I was feeling. And I told him, I'm not feeling well. I told him, besides not feeling well, the hardest part of everything is that I'm not able to concentrate. I can't daven, I can't learn, I don't think about Klal Yisrael, what am I going to do to help another Jew? I don't feel like myself. So he told me that Rav Shach Zatzal was getting up in his age. I believe that he lived till, according to some calculations, 112 years old. When he got up to the end of his life, and you can imagine at 112 years old, you're not high functionality anymore. And it pained him tremendously. He felt that he could not do what he used to do. He said there was one thing that gave him chizuk. He could think about the words, Ein Oid Milvadoi, there's nothing else besides Hashem. And that mitzvah to remind himself with a munah every single moment that he could, there's nothing else besides Hashem. Hashem is running the world, Hashem is taking care of me, Hashem is in charge of this. That gave Rav Shach tremendous chizuk strength at the end of his life. So Moshe Sher said, my davening, hard to daven. My learning, I just staring at the page, I don't understand. To help another Jew, what can I do from the hospital? But I can't do anything right now. But I started singing these words to myself, starting yesterday. Ein oid milvado, there's nothing else besides Hashem. And that gives me the chizuk. That made me feel good. It actually made me rejoice and feel happy for the first time in some time. How do you know the value of a person? How do you know the greatness of a person? How do you know what they're worth? You know what they're worth when you see the way they're responding to the situation that HaKadosh Baruch Hu puts them in. The Rabbeinu Yonah writes that the first step in Avodas Hashem, in entering into the gates of the service and the worship of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is, a person must know the Erech Atzmai, what is their intrinsic value. And when a person knows what is their intrinsic value, they're aware of the koichais, the strengths, the abilities, the talents, the skills, the essence of their neshama, then they can begin to pull it all together and they can serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the right way. According to what we're saying, it's beautiful. How does a person come to know the Erech Atzmai, their real value? When you look at yourself after you went through the challenge. Did the challenge make me stronger? Or did it make me weaker? Did I get farther from HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Or did I get closer to Hashem? I'm going through the funk in life. Am I falling off the rails? Or am I holding on to my dear life to make it stronger and better and get closer to Hashem? What am I doing? The Erech Atzmo, the value of the person, is determined how it is that they're going to react in the times that they're going through the challenges and how they're going to respond. I just heard a Maisa today. There is a Raphael Mashinsky, was a very close student to the Klausenberger Rebbe Zatzal. If anybody knows the stories that we've told in the past, the Klausenberger Rebbe was a man that walked into World War II, into the Holocaust, with a wife and 11 children. And he emerged from the ashes of Auschwitz with no wife and minus 10 children. And his 11th child died in the DP camps after surviving the entire war. So by the time that the Holocaust was over, and he was restoring himself, his health and the like, he was a man that had absolutely nothing left to his name, except one thing he had. And that was HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And anyone that ever saw the Rebbe in Auschwitz, and anyone who saw him afterwards, and those of us that were read, have been zeicher to read the stories, and maybe even see pictures or videos of him, everybody knows this was a man that emerged after the storm, probably 1,000 times stronger than he was even before he walked into the horrors of Auschwitz. So this Rav Mashinsky was raised as a Litvische Yid, which means he was not Hasidish. The Klausenberg Rebbe was a great Hasidish Rebbe. And they asked him, how did your family go from the Litvische world to the world of Klausenberg Hasidus? He said, because of my father. He says, when my father was a bacher, when he was a young man learning in Yeshiva Torah V'das, the Rosh Yeshiva of Mendelevich, Rashaga Mendelevich, when he found out that the Klausenberger Rebbe came to America, it was 1946. So we're talking, it was after the war, shortly after the war. He sent several bachim to go and spend the Friday night Seudah, the Friday night meal together with the Klausenberger Rebbe. And he said, my father was one of those Talmidim, one of those students that went. And they davened in Torah V'das, Kabbalah Shabbos, Marav, Friday night. And they come to the Beis Midrash where the Rebbe is, the Klausenberg Rebbe, and he davened very long. And when they got to the Beis Midrash, The Rebbe was in the middle of davening the Mariv Tefillah. And he was bowing by the words of Moedim Anachnu Lach. And when the Rebbe got to the following words, HaToiv ki lo ycholu rachamecha, Hashem is good because His mercy never ends. The Rebbe was bowing down by these words to an extent, and he kept saying over and over and over again, HaToiv, Hashem is good, Ki lo ycholu rachamecha, your mercy never ceases. And he said over these words for 1 hour straight. And the man's father, Mishinsky, was watching a Rebbe who lost his 11 children, his wife, who went through the Holocaust, who went through the war, who saw all the horror that you could imagine. And what are the words that he's saying? The words are, Hashem, you are good. Your mercy never abates. He said, when my father saw that, he became a Talmud, he became a student on the spot of the Klausenberger Rebbe for life. A man with such emunah, a man with such faith, a man that believed in HaKadosh Baruch Hu so much that after everything he went through, he's saying, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you're so good. Your mercy never ceases, it never abates, it never leaves. That's the sign of the Erech Atzmai, of the value of a person in this world. You don't know your value until you get pressed. You don't know your value until you must rise to the challenge. You don't know how much you are worth until you bring out the gold mines and the well springs of Amunah and Bitachon that is inside of you. You don't realize who you are until you overcome the challenges that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us in life, and it makes us stronger. And that's the Erech Atzmai. The first step into the pathways of Avodas Hashem, of serving the Ribbon Hashem, is you got to know your value, intrinsically who you are. How do you know? See how you respond to a test. The Gemara tells us that in Adam you can test a person in 3 ways. Kaisai, Kisai, V'kaisai. There's 3 ways you can test a person. In his kaisai, in his anger. How does this person react when he's angry? In his kisai, in his wallet, in his pocket, in his money. How does he spend his money? Is he generous? Is he stingy? Does he give? Does he hold it in? You want to test the person's level of chesed, level of generosity, level of nedivas halev, of how kind-hearted and how giving they are. Do they give open-heartedly, open-handed? Tiftaich, do they open up their hand and say, here you go? And the last one is in the kaisai, in their cup of wine. How does that person behave when he has drank just a little bit too much? Is he a wild man shouting obscenities and acting like a maniac? Or do you hear the beautiful words of Divrei Torah, brachas, aves Yisrael, chizuk that he gives to others? What do you hear? Says the Gemara, in these 3 ways, you can test who the person truly is. So if you want to know if it's a person that you should get close to, get the guy mad a little bit and see how he's going to react. And see, does he react gently, kindly? It takes a lot to really rustle his feathers. Or does he get angry fly off the handle? That's a kaisan, that's an angry person. Rav Moshe Sher is saying there's another way to measure a person. And that is b'nisyonosai, in his nisyonos, in the challenges that a person goes through. You can discern and you can see who the person is based on what they do to respond to what HaKadosh Baruch Hu brings their way. If a person would begin to examine their own personal life, and they would look at from as far back as you can remember, when you began to experience nisyonos, challenges in your life, How did you react? Did you lift yourself up? Or did you bring yourself down? Did you unite yourself with HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Did your emunah grow stronger? Or did it get weaker? Were you left with more doubts? Or more clarity in the Rebbeinu Shalom? How does it work? That's the way that we test, and that's the way that we know, and that's the way that we understand who we are. So I want to share with you a pasuk in Tehillim. For those of you that are in the Tehillim Shir on Sunday mornings, so then maybe this verse will sound familiar, but I want to share a beautiful verse. It says in Ayin Gimel in Tehillim number 73, Mizmor li'Asaf, Asaf was a Navi, he was a prophet. And he says, Ach toiv liYisrael. Everything is only good to Klal Yisrael. Elokim levari levav, Elokim, the God of justice and of judgment, levari levav, to those that are pure-hearted. And Rav Gamliel Rabinovich writes on these words of Tehillim the following. He says like this, Asaf hanavi oimer, the prophet Asaf says, if you go through, it's quite a long Tehillim, if you go through everything, you'll see very often in the words, he's bemoaning the plight of Klal Yisrael. He's crying in pain, he's shrieking. It's hard what Klal Yisrael goes through, the exiles and the destruction and the being flung from one place to the other. It's very difficult. Even though that I'm saying that, but I pay attention. I'm mizbainin, which means I meditate on this idea. V'roya, and I see. She'ein ze ki'im l'toivasam. Everything that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is putting a person through, and everything that He puts Klal Yisrael through, is all l'toivasam. It's all for their benefit. There's nothing that HaKadosh Baruch Hu would do to an individual, and there's nothing that He would do to Klal Yisrael as a nation that is not l'toivasam, not for our good. HaKadosh Baruch Hu mevi aleim yisurim. The reason that HaKadosh Baruch Hu brings suffering upon the Jewish people, because through that we will merit to walk into the world to come. Says of Gamliel Rabinovich, he's really going based on the words of Rashi over here. There's two ways that a person can look at the world. They could look at the difficulty and the pain and the hardships and the challenges, and they could look at it all very, very dark and very negative. They could look at that. Or they could say to themselves, wait a second, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is good. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the essence of taiv, of goodness. Everything that Hashem does is good. So then how could the suffering be good? Suffering by definition is bad. I'm in pain, I'm hurt, mental anguish, emotional anguish, physical anguish. How could that be good? Because I know that Hashem would do anything bad. So He must be doing something that's good. So where's the good in the pain that He's causing me? Where's the good in the nisayon that He's putting me through? Where's the good in the anguish that I'm experiencing? Says Rashi, the good is that He's cleansing a person. He's purifying you so that you will merit to be able to go proud and tall and strong into Olam Haba, into the world to come when the right time arrives. From here we learn something very important. All of the suffering and all of the pain and all of the hardships that befall a person in this world, tachlisam, their purpose is b'kedei lizechusai l'chai olam haba, is in order that you should have merits to get into the world to come. It's not about, shkayach, thank you very much. It's not about this world, because this world is the transient world. This world is the world that comes and it goes. This is the world that has a lot of the alma d'shikr. It's the world that is dark and is filled of deceit. The real world is the world to come. But you need currency to get into the world to come. How's a person going to get there? the way that they're going to get there is the neshama has to be pure. How does it get purified? Whatever challenges you go through in this world is purifying and elevating and making you greater. But you have to believe that. And you have to accept that. And you have to go with that. And if you do, so then every nisayon, every challenge that HaKadosh Baruch Hu brings to a person is not chas v'chalila negative and bad. Tachlisam, the purpose is to make you better and greater. Okay, Yedua, ha'olam hazeh eno ela achana u'mavoi la'olam haba. But this world is just preparing us for the world to come. Nimsa ki kol atzarais va'yisurim b'yisoidam heim toivais gedoylais. Listen to these words. What does it mean to tell us? All of the tzarais, all of the pain, and all of the yisurim, all the suffering, b'yisoidam, at their core, at their essence, they are great good for the person that is going through them. When a person begins to react under the pressure, when a person begins to be able to see these things, that everything that's happening is for a reason because it's making me a greater person, so then you know your Erech Atzma, you know the value of who you are. If a person would be cruising through life, just imagine you go to the gym and you walk in and you never really worked out before. So they start you off on low weights. It's like 5 pounds if you're lucky on the curls. You get to the bench press, they give you a bar. The bar weighs about 45 pounds, if I'm not mistaken, and you're just pumping the bar. And you're pumping the bar, and the bar, and the bar, and the bar. And you, 1 week, and 2 weeks, and 3 weeks, and 1 year later, you're just pumping the bar. And somebody walks in and says, weren't you doing that like a year ago? He said, yeah, isn't that the exercise? And they say, are you foolish? They say, no, that's what I'm doing. I'm pumping the bar, bench pressing. And they tell them, if you keep pressing the same amount of weight always, you are not going to develop, your muscles will never get stronger. You're not going to have that six-pack and you're not going to have that physique that you're looking for. It's going to stay exactly the way that it is. It's only when you start adding the weight to the bar, and the next week it's 55 pounds, and then it's 65, and then it's 100, and then it's 120, and then it's 150, and then it's 180, then it's 200, and you're pushing. And you got to strain yourself, and you have to stretch those muscles. That's the only way that you're going to develop yourself and become bigger and stronger and more cut and with a better physique. That's the only way. Says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's the same exact thing, if not more, in the world of our ruchnius, of our spiritual development. If I let you coast through life and everything goes status quo, so you're bench pressing 45 pounds your whole life, you'll never grow into the spiritual giant that you could be. But if I keep adding weights, says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I'll add in some challenges, I'll add in some financial worries, I'll add in some health issues, I'll add in some kids, I'll add in some this, I'll add in some this, and you have to keep pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. So then your spiritual muscle, which is your neshama, it gets bigger and bigger and stronger and higher up. And then you begin to know the Erech Atzmai, the real value of who you are. You could do it on your own if you are focused enough, if you understand enough. Like the Rabbi Yonah writes, there's something in the Gemara that's called Yisurim Shel Ava, suffering of love. What kind of suffering is love? Where did a person ever get suffering out of love? He says, you could do that to yourself. If you will push yourself to your limitations in your learning, you will push yourself to your limitations in your davening, you will push yourself to your limitations in your tzedakah, you got to give till it hurts. If it doesn't hurt you when the money comes out of your pocket and your wallet, you're not growing in your tzedakah. If it doesn't hurt you when you daven 1 second more, everybody's in a rush in the morning, we gotta get to work. But you spend 1 extra second and it hurts, you just pushed your neshama a little bit bigger. It's hard to come to a shir, Not anybody here, Baruch Hashem, but for other people, it's hard to come to a shir. And you push yourself out of the house. And you get inside your car. You know, in the olden days, they had to go walk down the muddy streets. And it was snowing outside. And they had holes in their shoes. And their jacket wasn't waterproof. And they went to the Beis Mikdash anyway. Everybody, I think, knows the famous story with the Panovich Rav. When the Panovich Rav was laying the cornerstone for the Panovich Yeshiva in Bnei Brak, which was at that time the largest yeshiva in the world. So he was standing next to the Chazon Ish and he was crying like a baby. And the Chazon Ish turned to him and he says, he says, for all your blood, sweat and your tears, all of your hard work, now you see the fruits of all of your labor, you're probably crying tears of joy. And the Panovich Rav turned to the Chazon Ish and said, I'm crying because I'm thinking about my mama, I'm thinking about my mother. He said, this is all in her schos. It's all in her merit. He says, when we were children, it was me and 2 brothers. And I was the youngest. And one day there was a terrible snowstorm in Panovich where we lived. Terrible snowstorm. And the roads, you couldn't walk down the roads. Unless you had boots and a jacket. In our house, we only had 1 pair of boots. So my mother came to us, the 3 children, in the morning, and she said, Rabbi Sai, my dear Kinderlach, she said, there's only 1 pair of boots in this house. And you can only walk the roads with the snow if you have a pair of boots. So she said, which one of you is going to get the boots to go to yeshiva and learn today? So my older brother said, well, I'm the oldest. I'm in the highest level of learning. Mama, you should give me the boots so I can go and I can learn. I'm learning Gemara, Rashi, Tosfos. I hear the shir from the Rabbi. I should go. And my middle brother said, no, but I'm like at that stage right now. We're learning big things in Mishnayos right now, and the Rebbe's getting so excited. I'm the one that should go. And I said, but I'm the youngest. And the Torah is the most pure by the youngest. I'm the one that should go. Let me wear the boots. And my mother looked at us and she said, you're not getting the boots. And you're not getting the boots. And you're not getting the boots. I'm going to wear the boots. And I'm going to carry each one of you to your yeshiva today through the snow. And she puts on the boots. And she takes her older son. She puts him on her shoulder. She carries him to yeshiva. Then she walks back through the snow. She gets the second son, she puts him on her shoulder, and she carries him through the snow and comes back. She takes me, says the Panovich Rav, little young boy that I was, puts me on her back, and she carries me through the snow, and she says, Shefala, my child, go and learn Torah, that's what it's all about. And from that day onwards, my mother taught me what Torah really is all about. And it's in her schus that we're building the Panovich Yeshiva. What's the Erich Atzmai? What's the value of a person? What do they do when it snows in Panovich and there's only 1 pair of boots? If you're a mother who puts on the boots and carries every single one of her children to yeshiva, that 30 years or 40 years or whatever is 50 years down the road, your son is building the biggest yeshiva in the world because of you, then you passed your test. You passed your challenge. You did what it is that you are supposed to do. And therefore, says Dovid HaMelech, in the way that Rav Gamliel Rabbanovish is explaining it over here, every Yisurim, every tzara that a person goes through in life, chas v'shalom, that it's bad. It's the weights that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is adding to your bar, to your dumbbell. So you won't be a dumbbell in Ruchnius. You'll be a strong man in Ruchnius. And you keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And you'll expand the muscles. You'll become stronger and stronger and stronger. And then you'll know the real value of what you are. So the Rabbeinu Yoina writes that you don't need Yisurim from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You could do it to yourself. And doing it to yourself means You're willing to push yourself in the mitzvahs. You push yourself in your midas. You break your Yetzer Hara when you can. But not everybody is Zeiche merits to have the Yisurim Shel Ava, the suffering of love. We don't all have the inner strength and courage and commitment to do that. So then Hashem says, don't worry, I'll take care of you. I'll send you Yisurim. I'll send you a challenge. I'll send you a situation in your life that's going to leave you pondering, why is HaKadosh Baruch Hu doing this to me? And the answer is, because I love you, and I care about you, and I want you to be like a Rav Moshe Sher. I want you to walk down the hallways and sing to yourself, Ein Oid Milvadoi. There's nothing else besides Hashem. And when a person gets to that place in their amun and their bitachon, so then they become from the strongest of people. Then they know their value. And if you overcame this nisayon, you'll overcome the next one and the next one. You'll be bench pressing thousands of pounds of nisyonis in your life. You won't be anybody stronger. They once asked Rav Moshe Sher, who had gone himself through many political battles on behalf of Klal Yisrael. He dealt with many delicate and very sensitive situations for the Jewish people. And it wasn't always easy. There were times when the cards were stacked against him, and it did not look like they would be able to overcome the daunting task that was in front of them. And they asked him, Rav Moshe, is there any words of chizuk, of inspiration? Is there anything that ever happened to you? Is there anything that you ever experienced that makes it your grit, determination that nobody ever sees you give up? How is it that you never give up in anything? If you put your mind to it, you go. Many times you succeed, but there are failures. But the failures never get you down. You never close up shop. Like we say, Sheva Yipol Tzadik V'Kam. A tzaddik will fall 7 times, and he just keeps getting back up. Again, and again, and again. Rasha, Nafal, Achas, the wicked man falls once, and he's gone. A tzaddik will fall. It doesn't say that tzaddik and righteous people never fall, they never stumble, they do fall. But what makes them a tzaddik is, they keep getting back up. So they said to Rav Moshe Sher, you just keep getting back up. How do you do it? I mean, if people would know, the man was like a machine of kavod shemayim, of the honor for Hashem. He was a machine for Klal Yisrael. He did everything for the Jewish people. In his hospital bed in the last hours of his life, he was thinking about a major event that was going to take place, where Rav Arlev Steinman and the Ger Rebbe were coming from Eretz Yisrael. All that was on his mind was that when they would come, they should have the greatest honor and respect that 2 Gedolei Yisrael deserve. That's what he was talking about. So how do you do that? How do you have such determination? And he said it goes back to a very famous story with my mother. He said that we grew up, we were extremely poor. We lived, I think, on the Lower East Side, extremely poor. My mother was like, she had odd jobs here and there to be able to make a little bit of money. My father didn't make much money. We were extremely poor. And one day I was very sick. He was a young boy. He was very sick. His body was burning up with fever. In the olden days when doctors cared, there were house calls. And the doctor came to the house and he examined the child and he said to Mrs. Sher, your son is deathly ill. He's burning up with fever. He has some kind of an infection or a virus. There's only one medication that can work to bring down the fever and get rid of the virus. If he doesn't get that soon, Mrs. Sher, I'm sorry to tell you, I don't think that your son, Moshe, is going to make it. And he wrote her a prescription for the medication. And she asked him, how much is this medication cost? And he told her a number. That number of what it cost for that medication was more expensive than a month's worth of wages that she made for cleaning some office building where she was. She has no money. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I have no money. My son needs the medication. What am I supposed to do? So she continues taking care of her young boy, Moshe. And she's with the wet cloths. and she's trying to feed him a little bit of water and bring down the fever, but the chills are racking his body. His fever is going. He's becoming, not thinking. And she's like, I can't. I need the medication. So she marches down to the pharmacy. And she walks into the pharmacy, and lo and behold, the owner of the pharmacy is not there. She says to herself, Baruch Hashem, he's not here. She said, there's the worker, the pharmacist, young girl. I'm going to tell her what's going on. And she breaks down to the young pharmacist. She said, please, my son is dying. The doctor said, if I don't get the medicine soon, he's going to die. She scrapes together, this is all the money that I have. I know that it's not enough. Please, I beg of you, fill the prescription, please, my son's going to die. And the young pharmacist felt so bad for Mrs. Sher. And the owner wasn't there anyway. She mixes the elixir, the potion, she puts it into the glass bottle, and she says to Mrs. Sher, go save your son's life. Mrs. Sher is ecstatic. She begins running down the busy streets of the Lower East Side in New York, and she's running towards her house. And she's got the bottle of medicine in this brown paper bag, running, holding onto it for dear life. But as she's running, and there's so many people in the streets, she bangs into a person, someone bangs into her. The next thing she knows, the package slips out of her hand, and it was a glass bottle like in the olden days, and it falls onto the ground, and it all cracks. And there's no more medication anymore. And that's it, her son is going to die. She gathers the broken pieces into the bag, and she goes back to the pharmacy. And when she gets to the pharmacy, the owner of the pharmacy is there. And she sees the owner, and she begins crying and sobbing uncontrollably. She says, please, your pharmacist was kind enough to fill the prescription. I gave all the money. I don't have any more money. My son is going to die. I promise you, if you'll fill the prescription, I promise you, I'll come in every day for the next months until I can pay it off. I'll clean your store every single day at the end of the day. You don't pay me, that will be my payment for the medicine. Please, I beg you. She's sobbing and crying and sobbing and crying. And the owner of the pharmacy, Baruch Hashem, had a soft heart. And he said, miss, how can I say no to you? Give me back the bag. He takes the bag. He smells it. And he looks at the medicine. And he says, Mrs. Sher, you have angels surrounding you. I'm telling you, you have angels surrounding you. I don't know what the pharmacist was thinking, but she mixed the wrong medication. If your son would have taken this medication, I promise you he would already be dead. This would kill him in a second. You have angels that stopped you. He said, I'm going to make the right medication. I'm going to give it to you, and it's free of charge. Don't worry, just go save your son. She gets the medication. You imagine she held on to this one a little bit differently. And she runs back to her house, and she gives it to her son, Moshe Sher. And Baruch Hashem, Moshe Sher was well and healed and became healthy, and he became one of the great leaders of Klal Yisrael here in America. And his mother used to tell him over the story. And she would say, Moshe, what I thought was the worst thing in the world when that bottle of medication broke and I thought you're going to die, it was actually the greatest thing that Hashem could have done because it saved your life. Because if I would have given it to you, you would have died. And then when I went back and I cried, they felt so bad, they gave the medication for free and I didn't have to go back and work and your life was saved. And she said, Moshe, never forget, sometimes the things in life that look to be the worst challenge and the worst pain is actually the biggest chesed, the greatest act of kindness from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Said Rav Moshe Sher, all of my life I thought about this story and this message from my mother. And I realized no matter what daunting tasks we're going to have to face as an individual, as a family, as a kehillah, as a nation, no matter what Klal Yisrael is going to go through in our long, arduous galus and exile, no matter what, when it looks the darkest, and it looks the most unknown, and it looks the most unsure, I keep thinking to myself, maybe that itself is exactly the bracha that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is bringing for a better life for Klal Yisrael. And that's what this one Rav Mashinsky saw when he saw the Klausenberger Rebbe davening shortly after he lost his entire family. Hatoiv ki loi chalu rachamecha. Hashem is good. His mercy never abates. It never desists. His rachamim is always there. In the challenges, yes. Why is that merciful? Because it's good. Why is it good? Because he's making you a greater person. And therefore, the real erich atzmo, the real value of who the person is, comes through in those moments of challenge in their life. So may we be zeiche im Yetz Hashem, that we should try to challenge ourselves. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't have to bring challenges in our life. Yisurim shel ava, suffering of love. When you push yourself to the limits in your davening, in your learning, in your chesed, in your tzedakah, in your midas, in your controlling your tzar, when you push yourself and it hurts, that's suffering out of love. I did that for you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But just in case we don't all do it in the right way, don't get angry with Hashem when He sends you sermon. Don't get angry with HaKadosh Baruch Hu when He challenges you. Don't be mad when Hashem tests us and we don't see Him testing other people the way He's doing it to us. Why? Because that must mean that Hashem knows you've got some big muscles inside of there that just are underdeveloped right now. And through that which you will do, you're going to walk out of it. You'll be Mr. Universe. You'll be Mrs. Universe. You'll be Mr. Olympia. You'll have all the muscles. One, they have like one on top of the other like that. You'll have one on top of the other of the greatest spiritual muscles that you could imagine. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu tested you and you withstood the test of time. In Yetz Hashem, we should be zeicher to find the inner strength to overcome whatever nisyonos, whatever challenges there are in our life, to recognize that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the best trainer in the world. Bar none, there's no better trainer. They have all these trainers, they weigh you, they take your body mass, they hear what you eat, how many hours you sleep, and they design a whole regimen for you. 6 hours of sleep, and you have to eat this amount of grass, and you have to eat this amount of soy milk and only oat milk on Tuesdays, and you have to work out 17 hours a day, and every meat has to be lean, and so on and so forth, and that's how you're going to get in the best shape possible. Hashem says, I'm the best trainer. And I'm developing your muscles and your regimen and your stamina and everything so that you should be able to become the greatest you possible. Be'ez Hashem Yisbarach will become the greatest we's that we could become, the greatest ani, the best that I could become, and in the schus of overcoming the nisyonos of life that Hashem puts everybody through, that will be the defining moment of the erich atzma, of the real value of who we are. And just like a person dedicates their value to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that money goes into the Beis HaMikdash for the things that the Beis HaMikdash needs, in Yetz Hashem, when we will dedicate our value to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, He'll bring us back to that place that our neshamas need so badly, and that is the building of the Bayis Shlishi, the third Beis HaMikdash, B'mheira V'yameinu. Have a good one. All the best, everyone.